I would say the problem that exists is that the world, including the church, has not found healthy space for Black women, and more broadly, the world hasn't found healthy space for people who live intersectional realities. And so my faith and my work calls me to create spaces of liberation and justice, and to narrate the way that we talk about God, so that we are emphasizing a God of love and inclusivity rather than this God that is policing people's bodies and sexuality and identity. So because of that, we founded the Global Arts and Theology Experience and started the Beyoncé Mass as projects that really pull forward people who've been pushed to the margins. And so we're constantly looking for how it is, in particular, that we can create positive identity spaces for Black girls and Black women. But we acknowledge that even though that work is enough, that when we do that work, we make room for people who are not Black women to find healthy, generative, faithful, and justice-filled spaces. So the vision and the mission of our project is, again, to really try to find ways to talk about the church, to talk about the world as a positive global reality for Black girls and Black women. So we've created a series of projects that are focused on shifting narratives, calling forth stories. And these are stories that are not new. They are stories that have existed in the Black community, have existed among Black women, but we haven't found ways to hold those stories, those narratives, those conversations as sacred God talk. And so I think that's a core value for us at the Global Arts and Theology Experience. And I want to talk differently about healing spaces. A lot of brokenness in the Black community, and for Black women, that has meant the proliferation of this superwoman complex, and I think that has led to a lot of death among Black women, right? So when we talk about obesity rates, morbidity rates, cancer, high blood pressure, all of these things are indications of the ways that we have forced Black women into healthy spaces. And I think if we could attend to wholeness, to do that work that Alice Walker talks about, of one's tears being a counterbalance to one's laughter, giving people the range of emotions, I think that we can do some healing that will lead to the longevity of Black women. So I am a Hebrew Bible scholar. I'm a womanist theologian. I'm the creator and curator of the Beyoncé Mass. And I'm the founder of the Global Arts and Theology Experience. And so what I often, when I introduce myself, I like to include all of those pieces. I'm DOC clergy. That's also an important piece of my identity, and all of those things are gathered together in this work that we do. So I was really motivated to participate in the SENT Cohort because I think that social entrepreneurship is not something that we've been talking about for a long time. And as I was thinking about how to translate my scholarly work into a nonprofit organization, I knew that I needed not just like financial resources but I needed learning spaces, and I needed a community of people. Because when we talk about the world not having space for particular kinds of folks, one of the things that we haven't figured out how to do as a society is to foster social entrepreneurship, right? There's language, there's affirmation for people who are entrepreneurs in the business world, but it's a really scary thing to be a social entrepreneur in this time. And so I was excited that these kinds of programs exist, and particularly that they are rooted in the church, and having that community of people who have the capacity to think outside the box and imagine something bigger and better and create an infrastructure around it that would make the project an organization that was sustainable for the long run. It is important to me in my being that we create something for the next generation of Black girls and Black women. And so I really wanted all of the resources possible, intellectual, financial, communal, so that we could build a movement. How have we been strengthened by the process? I think we've been strengthened by the process because we were really a project. We had visions of being an organization. But since I've been connected with NBA, we've been able to file our 501c3 status. We are officially a nonprofit organization. It's helped me think about building a working board. We have a board of directors, and we've had conversations between me and the board about what the kind of 1 year, 2 year, 3 year plan are for creating a larger board, for creating an advisory board. I just think we're an entity now. We think about structure now because of the conversations that we've had in our cohort meetings, the people who we've been exposed to who have this long-standing experience in organizational development. And so we keep hitting this moment as an organization where we think, oh wow, we're here. We can see the tangibility of what we're doing, and that's something that I think that we've gotten from being connected with the NBA SENT Cohort. It has been invaluable to be connected with Dr. Jennifer Madden, and it's been really important for me because often when you do social entrepreneurship work, things happen from a very white lens or a very, very patriarchal lens. And so to hear a Black woman who comes out of the academy, like myself, who has very practical and pragmatic skills, like myself, offer advice and resources and give us advice about how to think about structuring our organization and growing our organization has been important for me, not only in organizational development, but for me in how I think about my own capacities as a scholar, my own capacities as a leader, and the possibility of this work that we're doing. My goals are ambitious. I've always known that, and I'm dedicated to making it happen. So I want to have the organization in a place where the people who work for me now in contract positions have a salary, that I have my own sustainable salary as the executive director of the organization. And I would like for us to have launched at least 4 pilot sites for the Black Girl Magic Academy, which is a project that we're facilitating to help Black girls between the ages of 11 and 17 learn womanist thought, theology, Black women's literature, Black women's history, and to use all of those tools and apply them through the arts so that they are creating projects like the Beyoncé Mass that help them think about themselves differently. So would love to have 4 of those sites launched, and would love to have some kind of financial stability to keep moving forward. So it's interesting for me to think about whether or not it's important that people in the church understand this work as Christian expression. Because there's a part of me that wants to say yes. There's a part of me that as a scholar, as someone who's dedicated her life to helping people think critically and think differently, that wants to say, yes, we need the church to understand that it's more than bricks and mortars, it's more than the kind of business institutions that we have created around our articulations of faith. And because I spend so much time interacting with people who have been wounded by the church, who've been pushed to the outside of the church, there's that rebellious part of me that says, if you don't get it, there are folks who will get it. And I know this to be kingdom building work. And so I'm just going to keep going, right? And so when I think about the gospel witness, the work that God does throughout the whole arc of the Bible, it's that God puts a vision forth and says to the people, through Jesus, through the prophets, I hope you get it. But if you don't, the work will go forward. So I do, for my own love of the church, hope that people can understand these alternative witnesses as crucial to the work that God is doing in the world. And if they don't, I think it's important for those of us who are called to this work to constantly be in conversation and be in communion with God, so that we have a fortitude to keep going, no matter what those people who are steeped in tradition and rooted in their own myopic view of who God is and how God works in the world, so that we can leave them behind and keep doing the work.